Hello and welcome back to another video here on the Analytics channel. Good to be back. It's been a little while. Obviously a lot's gone on in the last few days. We have a game to talk about coming up, of course, but the biggest news, obviously, as I'm sure you're all aware watching this video, Rob Edwards has been sacked and replaced by Slaven Bilić. So the main idea today probably won't be looking at Stoke too much as we'll be looking at Bilić. I think that's the more pressing issue. Hopefully we get back to the video with some Stoke stuff as well, but mainly, as I said, we want to look at Bilić and see what he could do for us. We're back here again. Doesn't seem like that long ago we were talking about Rob Edwards joining and what he could bring to the team, to the squad, and yeah, we're back at it again. So just in case it hasn't been, or just in case you haven't had enough discussion about Rob Edwards, I will just say real quick my opinions. I think it is a little frustrating. I was personally someone that believed, maybe naively, maybe just overly hopeful, that we had perhaps turned a corner or changed our approach, even though it wasn't a clean change and it was stuttering perhaps. I thought we were maybe at least trying to correct our course a little bit after clearly losing track on what was our original strategy, failing to adapt. And I thought maybe we'd kind of learn from our mistakes and possibly learn from some of the teams, around the world which have developed a different way of doing things. And I thought we'd at least try and merge and blend that with our own approach. But clearly it wasn't what we thought. And after 10 games, Rob is gone. Obviously, Rob wasn't perfect for sure, but I don't think we expected him to be or really needed him to be perfect. I think it was an opportunity to rebuild whilst we still have some assets at our disposal and go down a different route. But there we are. If you want a longer version of not just my thoughts, but also Matt Messiano and Tom Bodell, then head over to the Watford Buzz podcast and give that a listen. We talk about that pretty extensively if you want some more. Rob Edwards discussion, there's obviously been a lot. And in terms of the ownership and so on, it's my frustrations have definitely kind of risen over the last week. But regardless, managers come and go. We're still here as fans, and I'm going to keep doing these videos, and hopefully we have something positive to discuss. So we'll talk about Slaven Bilić. That's the main reason why we're here. That's what let's talk about. Obviously Rob is gone. What's Bilić inheriting? What kind of team is he inheriting? And how is it going to fit with what he does? Because we're back in that situation now where we were trying to think about how does this team, his squad, is kind of a mixed match squad that needs some positions or players brought in. How does it suit Rob? Well, now we're in a position where we weren't able to fulfill those needs, and we've got a new coach. So do we match up? And that's going to be what we're looking at a lot this video, and also where we need to improve and what Bilić likes to do. So I guess let's get into it. Let me change this camera quick. Alright, so obviously confirmation of Rob's departure, and also very quickly after the arrival of Slaven Bilić, who I believe took training the last couple of days as well. And also there was some other news before we get onto Bilić real quick, maybe brought out to soften the blow a little bit, which Imran Louza has extended his contract till 2028. Good player, did well for us, and I think he has a big part to play still for the club, for the team this year, and hopefully for the future, but also for Bilić as well, and we'll talk about that. Why I think he has an important role for Bilić coming up, but it looks like he's set to kind of get back to fitness. Let's see if it gives a date here. He's not far off, I know that. Back with the ball, my teammates, which is really pleasing. It's going to be great to get back on the pitch, normal stuff. But I think another couple of weeks, and we should have Louza back, and Bilić should have Louza back, which should be important. So, what does Bilić like to do first and foremost? Well, let's discuss that. So, formation-wise, predominantly we're looking at a 4-2-3-1. that's traditionally his setup. He's toyed around with the shapes before, but what we've seen at West Brom, at the past at West Ham, kind of looking at some of his more successful spells, most of it's come around the 4-2-3-1. No, it's nothing crazy, really, but there are some elements that we should talk about. Kind of principles of this shape, roles that he likes to fill. Obviously, I think the first thing that probably comes to mind when you think, or someone that's synonymous with Slaven Bilić when you think about his managerial career, is Dimitri Payet, obviously. Harnessing that talent and that sort of mercurial player, that maverick player that can play in that number 10 position, be that attacking midfield and number 10, moving between the lines, different areas of the pitch, helping creative play. Obviously you're probably thinking that's your number 10, that's João Pedro. And I think that's probably there's a good chance of that. Now, seeing obviously one up front as well will be interesting, because you're then changing that approach as well. You're not having that double striker situation for Pedro to work with, and we're going to see that lone striker. But of course, he's going to need support. So I think Keenan Davis is going to be the one who's going to stick out there as that prime candidate. I guess I'm going to number, as we talk about the roles. I might as well number these as long as I can remember the numbers of the players, just so we kind of get an idea of at least what I think might be happening. So yeah, those are the first two that really come to mind as players we have to watch out for. But João Pedro obviously filling that, I don't want to say Payet role, it's such a difficult thing to quantify and to ask of him. But the main point I'm making here is they have that player who operates between the lines. Think of Pereira as well. Pereira, from West Brom in that Championship season. He's another player that did well in that role, that position. Is given freedom. We'll talk about how that's aided or helped as we go on. But Pedro's the main one. Davis, I think they're two players I believe will fall into the system quite nicely. Goalkeeper, I mean, this is an opportunity for a goalkeeper to really push himself on there. You think Backman's going to be the one, but it's another new manager looking at Okoye, and there's a clip that went around from midweek international break of Okoye making a couple of mistakes, but it's an opportunity for him to show something different. However, I think we're probably going to see Backman stick around to begin with, at least as the number one. Possession from the goalkeeper is or can be important. It is varied a little bit. His use of the ball, in terms of quantity of possession, has varied somewhat. He's definitely played some. We look at most recently in the Championship West Brom. There were some elements of the team or some aspects were quite heavily possession based for a while, but it did shift and it changed a little bit as the season progressed. I went back and watched some of his West Brom footage, looked at West Ham again, and looked at his time in China a bit too. But the main one I've kind of focused on is really West Ham, but West Brom as well. And the possession, as I said, varied a little bit. So it's not always possession based, but it can be. I think you'd like it to be, especially at the Championship level. But I'm not sure if we have the personnel to do so. So centre backs. So first thing we'll talk about, actually, the kind of main or the first principle we'll talk about from this 4-2-3-1 is how the midfielders are used. Two CDMs, predominantly two deeper line players. Obviously, one being a defensive midfielder, mainly more so. The other one, if he has the opportunity to carry the ball a little bit, that's ideal. If you look back at West Brom, you're thinking Livermore and Sawyers. Sawyers is someone who offers that box-to-box threat, can carry the ball, breaks a press nicely, but both of them can play the ball. Livermore maybe a little bit more conservative in possession, but still has the option to break a press. And a lot of it comes from this shape they're going to create by having the two deeper players, allowing that box shape, both offensively, giving you options in that build-up play, but defensively as well, isolating the striker and forcing the 10 and the wingers to get involved a lot quicker and try and be solid. But that also allows them to move up the pitch a little bit quicker as well, providing the players have the ability to do so. And that brings us on to Imran Louza. Well, I'm thinking, is he number 8? What number is Imran Louza? We're just looking at him. What number is he wearing? 6, okay. Yeah, cleverly he's number 8, isn't he? Okay, so you think Imran Louza here? This is the guy who I'm looking at, who can pick up the ball in a deeper position, who can spray the ball, who can find players, and someone that can break those lines, play out of a press, but also can be quite tenacious off the ball, get around the pitch and shield that back four, but still have the legs to break, press when needed. Although the two defensive midfielders aren't heavy pressers, they do sit back and create that box and cover the centre of the pitch, congest things quite a lot. So I'm not sure if his pressing ability will be used as much as I thought it would be under Edwards should he still been around. But there are still things to like about Louza there. Quality in possession, risk taker perhaps maybe at times in possession, but offers you something a little bit different, especially when you're looking at the partner. Hamza Chowdhury, I think is very likely to fill this role, playing as that defensive midfielder. Obviously you have KMB, maybe in the meantime you expect KMB and Chowdhury most likely again. KMB might be asked to carry the ball a little bit more to facilitate this system and to help sit in there, with Chowdhury being the more defensive minded player. That's what I would probably expect to see from those guys. But, it's a more traditional two-man, deeper midfield. It's a three-man midfield, but a two deeper lying playmaker there, and a defensive midfielder just operating together. And at times they can both be defensive and they could both push up at times. But if you can have them with tempo and possession and quality, you can get the ball forward and you can build up from the back a little bit better if we decide to do so. Speaking about the centre-backs, generally it's kind of been a little bit more of that balanced centre-back approach. One is more of the combative player, the other a ball player, which I think if he decides to go possession-based with us, it would change it. I mean, if you're looking at just out-and-out combative defensive centre-backs, Sirialta and Courtney House are going to be the ones you look at and say probably most likely to play in those positions. But then again, if we look at a ball playing centre back, we could even see Craig Cathcart in there. I'm thinking this might be Cavaselli pushed to the side, switching back to that back four. Not that I think it's a ball playing centre back, but could a Congo in there potentially. But I think my gut tells me that we might see Cathcart and Courtney House. Which number is Courtney House? 30. I'm gonna guess. I think it's 30. Playing in that central position. However, it could be Sirialta, but obviously the left foot of House is going to be beneficial. I think he's going to be definite starting in there, and then Cathcart can help play alongside. And again, I don't think Cathcart's fantastic at playing the ball out, but he's better than some of the options we have, and he has a steady hand in that position. Moving on to the fullbacks, I think one side kind of speaks for itself. I don't think it's hard to say now. Okay, I'm really getting tested on the numbers now. Kamara is 14. Hassan Kamara obviously can bomb up and down the pitch, and we're going to get into the fullback play in a second in terms of why that's obviously, I mean, it's quite obvious why it's beneficial, but it is used a little bit more in here, and we'll explain that. The right side is the interesting one. We're going to leave that blank a little bit because we're going to discuss the possibilities, the pros and cons of the options we have, and what Bilić might land on in terms of how he's going to set this team up and based on the players we have. We know what he likes to do, and that's also involving the forward players here, which we're going to talk about. So the wide players, I think Ismail Assar is pretty nailed on when fit. Left at the moment, probably most likely Ken Sema, let's just say that for now. So what are these players going to offer? How do we get this attack going? And how does it impact the fullback? So in terms of attacking play, the thing we saw at West Brom was quite interesting, is how narrow these guys got, operating that inside zone, working off the number 10, but also stopping the striker being isolated, not allowing him to just be a figurehead up front, a focal point who's not able to be used and just kind of isolated. And these back twos provide that platform. Obviously you can get up with Louza, but they are quite disciplined, they stay quite deep, and the reason is because those fullbacks like to push up and support, and they provide the width, allow these three to get narrow, interchange, and isolate that box you're often playing against. It could even be a back three, but this is what we do defensively. We need to get involved ourselves and create overloads, and also allows you to be a pressing unit for the middle of the pitch, force them to go wide, force them to go long at times, but that central area, that central zone or two, they're going to be key for us in the attacking phase of play. I do think it will give us some interesting advantages in the attacking third, especially because you have someone like Keenan Davis. I really trust him in this sort of team to be a guy who can bring these into play. And these are three good players at championship level, especially, that can be involved in the attacking aspects of the game. Actually, I say Sema's nailed on. Not I didn't say it's nailed on, but I say he's the one to play there. But also you've got Asprilla as well. Asprilla's number. It's going to bother me, so I'm going to check real quick. But yeah, so Asprilla, apologies for this, but it's going to really bother me. 18, okay. Alright, so let's just put him in here for fun. Yeah, so Asprilla's going to play on the left. Well, actually, now I think about it, with the narrowing of the team, I do think it makes sense in that attacking play to bring him inside and help play off. But that bounce board of Keenan Davis, someone that we know that can be really effective in hold-up play, bringing others into attacking situations. I really like that setup there, and I think it might benefit us quite well. Obviously, Ismail Assar is the question there. We don't really like him as much now. We know that his best football that we've seen has come in this wider position here. So how do we facilitate that? And I think we will still see him come narrow, but my guess now is going to be that we're going to be somewhat lopsided in shape. I think that the fullback situation coupled with Sar's strengths wouldn't surprise me if we see something a little bit more lopsided. So in possession, perhaps something a little closer to this. Deeper lying fullback, defensive midfielder still can be there. You might push up with one might stay back, but I think the fullback on the left is going to offer width in Kamara, and the right I think we'll see a little bit more of a shift to look at something a little bit more like this in attacking phases. I think the right side will be dominant, much like it was in the last championship campaign. And that's partly down to the fact that Sar likes that space. He's strong wide, carrying the ball, getting the ball into the box, attacking in that fashion. But also the fullback situation, we don't have that progressive right back. Obviously, we've talked about the right wing back ad nauseum, but we still don't have it, and it's still relative. It still affects the game because, as we said, the width comes generally for Ivic. I'm going to do that so many times. For Bilić from these fullbacks, and we don't have that. So, if you want to go more conservative, Jeremy Ngaki is the guy, but I do wonder if this might be the opportunity for Mario Gaspar. Wasn't fancied by Rob, obviously, left out of the squad when fit even. But do we see something like what we saw, I'm making big comparisons here, but what we saw with Zabaleta at West Ham, where he does play a little bit more conservatively, is not bombing up the pitch, he's someone that can offer you something in possession and allow Ismail Assar that freedom to go up there. So, I don't know which way we go here. I'm almost leaning towards Gaspar. I think that might be the favourite to facilitate this shape. Whether or not we do so is going to be hard to tell. Now, obviously, it does change things a little bit. I do like the numbers that Bilić puts into these forward areas in the central areas of the pitch, contains things nicely and allows that quick interplay, gets the ball into the box and allows changing of position and so on. But I think naturally we are going to see that width. So we have to account for it, and I think it's not a happy medium maybe, but it's a balance we can perhaps come to, or a conclusion we can perhaps come to based on the players available. So yeah, let's just say, for example, I think Gaspar's number 3. So I think it's going to look something like this. I think that's what we're probably going to see a lot of the time, and it obviously indicates a lot of attack and play down the right. I think it does suit Gaspar even from an offensive situation. His best play comes from possession-based football, creeping up the pitch and being an outlet coming inside. And if he does get forward, those underlapping runs, this is his space to operate, and that's where he can play. So, perhaps it's a way we can find to get Gaspar in the team and actually be effective rather than the kind of ineffective and partial input he's had as of yet, really. Weaknesses, I'd say the gap between midfield and attack can arise, especially if those two are quite disciplined. You don't have the carrying ability or the progression from that midfield. So early on, when Kayembe and Chowdhury are playing, that would be a concern of mine. Can Pedro drop deep enough to get things involved? Are we quick enough to adapt to the style of play? At first, that might be a problem, and if that is a problem, then we're probably going to see us go quite long from these centre-back positions up to Davis, and that's a worry of mine. Do we see us go long too early because we haven't quite got the rhythm through the middle of the pitch yet. So bear that in mind that comes to watching it early. It wouldn't surprise me if you see that as a weakness to start with at the very least. I'm kind of expecting it to be a kind of growing pain, teething issue early on potentially, unless the players really step up and just execute from the off. And then it's not as susceptible because you're probably going to have one fullback a little bit further back, but because of the narrowness of the front three, or the front four, sorry, when they do get into these positions, if the fullbacks are to rise up, then obviously you have those midfielders being asked to play into those wide areas, or more of a concern for me, the centre-backs are being asked to cover in the wide areas, and because we don't have the most athletic centre-backs, we don't want them pulled around too much. So the left or the right side might be a little bit safer because we're probably going to have Gaspar on and Ngakia, but our left side could be an area of exploitation for the opponent. So that's kind of my main takeaways from what I've watched of Bilić and the likelihood of the squad or the setup we might see. I think this is probably where we're going to be at, and it's not that long to wait. It's Sunday against Stoke, and it's going to be pretty quick. For if it, I'm going to do this a million times for Bilić, for Slaven Bilić to get his points across, and we'll see how it works out. So fascinating to see. We will look quickly at West Brom, his time at West Brom, just because we want to see the most recent outing in the Championship, which I believe is must have been 1920 or 2021. Just trying to establish 2021, I think. This COVID time period for football has been very difficult to track the years. Teams, have a look. Oh, okay. Hold on. Am I crazy? 1920. 1920. Okay, finished third. Okay, alright, that's better. And let's have a look through some of these numbers then. Overview. So goals. Total. Third in the league, 77. Conceded. I mean, obviously you're expecting the numbers to be good. With a team that gets promoted, 45 compares to the XG against is what? 51, XG4. So overshot their goal, expected goals. Ball possession, I think it's around 54 or something, 54.3. So towards top end of the league, not quite Fulham or Leeds, but definitely up there. Offensively, so let's have a look. Shots. I know they got a lot of touches in the box. I think that's something that's always credited to West Brom. So a lot of shots per 90. Second in the lead, averaging almost 13. One-on-one dribbling, not quite as high. Despite the fact they had quite a lot of ball carriers, so I'm a little bit surprised there. I mean, it's not low. They're 3, 4, 5. They're 6th. It's not low. Touches in the penalty area. Third per 90. Let's have a look. Construction. I think progressive passes, they had a decent amount as well. So per 90. Okay, not as much as I thought. 7th in the league. And accuracy, how they were accuracy wise. Accuracy, they're up the top end. Okay, so that's something to note a little bit. Key passes per 90. This is all very arbitrary. We're just kind of getting an idea here. Obviously, we're not going to draw too much from this because there's so many different circumstances that play into it and so on. But it gives us an idea of how his team ranked at least, and some of the positions they put themselves in to get around this area of the pitch, area of the table, in different metrics. So passes per defensive action against, a little bit lower down, but that's okay. And then defensively, shots against, how many times they face a shot per 90. Pretty good. Again, defensive duels, I'm not really too worried about that. Challenge intensity, let's have a look. That's kind of interesting. Actually, that's one thing. They do play quite a low block. They're not overly aggressive. The front unit can press at times, but they played a little bit deeper than I thought they did. His time at West Brom, I was surprised a little bit how deep they were at times. But I guess given the centre-backs in Bartley and Ajayi that they had there, it did suit that kind of lower block. if we were to play Sirialta and House, I think that's even more likely. But we'll see. He might deem it necessary. Who knows? But it's something to bear in mind. We could be a little bit more of a deeper set team, especially when we're trying to open up that space to play out from the back a little bit as well. Yeah, that's mainly kind of the areas I wanted to look at, and try to get a little bit of an understanding of what to expect from the man himself, Vladimir. Oh my god, Slaven Bilić. This is a problem. I can't believe I should have done that again. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. Obviously, there's more that comes up, more arises. We'll discuss it. We've covered a fair amount. One more thing I will say, actually, looking through lineups, looking through teams, and going back over some results, and just to the research of watching some games. Something I noticed him being quite good at was proactively substituting, which has obviously been a bit of a concern. He's not afraid to make a sub at half time to change things. Now, you could argue, is that a result of not getting things right from the beginning, or is it proactivity? It's up for debate, but I do think that that's something to at least talk about as a positive, making changes. On the other hand, I have seen criticism just through looking through some discussion, or even speaking to a friend of mine who's a West Ham fan. One of their criticisms was that he often would stick with the team off the back of a positive result, regardless of opponent, which is a little bit of a concern, especially in the Championship. But just a couple little notes to kind of think about, and we'll see. So yeah, they're my main takeaways from looking over Slaven Bilić in his most recent years in the Championship, and also at West Ham as well as some in China. But again, there's less to take from that. So with that, I think that will conclude everything for this video. Thanks again for watching. Please come over and follow me on Twitter at Watford Analytics. Go and listen to the Watford Buzz podcast. Myself, Matt Messiano, and Tom Bodell. We just released an episode talking about the departure of Rob Edwards and what we think is going on at the club, and where it's going and how we feel and how others feel. We answer some questions in there as well. So again, if you do listen to that, please do get questions in on a weekly basis. You can DM, comment on a thread that we post about sending questions in, and get involved. Always like speaking to you. Please like and subscribe this video. If not, then that's okay. You don't have to. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. And have a good night or day, afternoon, whenever you're watching this.